Good evening, everybody. It's Eric Foster, co-founder of the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC, father, 10th generation American citizen, African American citizen. It's funny, I had someone on threads earlier today, a white gentleman who's a MAGA person, who told me I'm not African American, told me I'm Black American. It's really interesting that those people believe that they can tell people who they are. You know, we're not in that world when they talk about trying to make America go back to a certain time. We're not in that world where America was like that. That day is past and that day is not coming back. But I digress. I wanted to make this post because there's something that is really the best way I could say pissing me off. And as I'm talking, I'm looking at a couple of things. I'm looking at the tonight, Alina Habba, who is Middle Eastern American, by the way, who is in my opinion, improperly appointed U.S. Attorney General for part of New Jersey, has decided to is charging a African American duly elected member of Congress with crimes for that congresswoman being assaulted by the ICE and HSI thugs who are operating at a private facility in Newark, New Jersey, without as I've read from news reports and done some research on, not operating with all of the proper municipal approvals that they need to have to operate a business or operate a facility like that. And just because they have a federal contract does not prevent them from having to comply with state, county, and local law. It's a private business that's contracted with the federal government to house persons who are in ICE or Homeland Security Investigations custody. But they still have to comply with local laws, with state laws, and with county laws. But it seems like in this regime, they believe that they don't have to comply with anybody's laws. And you saw what happened with Mayor Baraka in terms of them arresting him and the way that they treated him and the congresswomen, including Congresswoman Watson Coleman, Congresswoman McIver, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly because as you can see, I'm looking at my phone. Yes, McIver and Congressman Menendez. But also at the same time, this MAGA Trump DOJ is opening an investigation against the mayor of the city of Chicago for the audacity, the unmitigated gall of hiring qualified Black people to positions of leadership in his administration versus hiring probably qualified white people as well. But he hired qualified Black people, which, as you can see from the regime in DC and the MAGA House and MAGA Senate in Congress, they don't hire non-white heterosexual men. But I digress. Not only are both of these actions racist, I'm not going to say inherently racist, it's just plain racist. But it's also a commandeering of the ability of both local government to exercise its constitutional, statutory 10th Amendment and Article 4 powers in the case of what happened in New Jersey, and in the case of Chicago, the ability to hire qualified, non-white, heterosexual male candidates for positions, an attack on the ability to be proud that you have found qualified individuals of color and you hired them to positions. Somehow, to the MAGA white supremacist wing of the MAGA organization, that is an affront. That is a crime. That is wrong and unacceptable in their America. If you're not a white heterosexual male, you should have and accept a caste system role where you have less access to rights and opportunity than the white heterosexual male. And really, it's not even the white heterosexual male, it's the white heterosexual MAGA male. Because if you're a white heterosexual non-MAGA male, you don't fit in their worldview either. They treat you like you're a betrayer to their cause. So tonight, the another person of color, Hamid Dillon, who I believe is Asian Indian American, sent this letter to Mayor Johnson saying that the DOJ is opening an investigation to determine if the city of Chicago engaged in a pattern of practice of discrimination based on race. Now, the reason why that language is important is because typically pattern and practice investigations at the Department of Justice have been usually open when there is discrimination in the corporate or business sector, but over the past few decades, it's really been used to look at the actions of rogue police or county sheriffs or law enforcement in terms of their treatment of people of color in their communities. And even under Bush 41 and Bush 43, those administrations also opened up pattern and practice investigations against inherently racist departments where you had racist leadership or racist officers who were making the good non-racist officers not only look bad and not only be able to interfere with their job, but those good non-racist officers weren't in positions of authority to try to stem the tide of that behavior. Rather have a good cop who follows accountability than a bad cop who doesn't follow accountability. You can have good police without having bad police. But they're opening this investigation. And like I say, it's definitely an affront to the whole pattern and practice rule. But then they are doing this under Title IX, 42 USC 2000, and also it's 2000 E-2 and 2000 E-6A. Here's what they're citing as the offense that he did in terms of them opening up this investigation. At a black church, well, not a black, but a church that's primarily worshiped by African Americans and people of color in the Christian faith, because, and I say this as a Christian, the Christianity that we worship in terms of Jesus is nothing like MAGA Christianity, which I consider fake Christianity. But that's Eric Foster's perspective, no one else's. So the statements he made at the Apostolic Church of God in Woodline, Illinois, the people he's hired, who are qualified African Americans, include the deputy mayor, who's over business and economic development, the Department of Planning and Development. The director there is a African American woman. The infrastructure head, who's a deputy mayor, is an African American woman. The COO, chief operating officer, is an African American man. The budget director is a African American woman, and a senior advisor is a African American man. Now, the city of Chicago, in terms of its overall employment and people that work for the city, likely has more than, I have to look up the exact numbers, but I'm gonna say they likely have more than uh 11, 12,000 people that work for the city. So because he hired six qualified African American candidates to positions in the city, this is a negative. And this is something that should be investigated as a civil rights violation. It's bullshit. And so that is the first thing. And I would say and hope that in totality, the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, and Cook County not only fight back, not only say no to this crap, but also if you're a MAGA compliant business, be it if it's a law firm or other entities that have bended the knee, don't do business with those entities. Don't do business with them under any circumstances. I want you to stop working with those particular folks because they are anti the opportunities for people who look like me, who are African American or Hispanic American, et cetera, who are non MAGA Americans. So it's time to stop messing with them, which then gets me to Congresswoman McIver and the treatment of the duly elected African American and Hispanic American members of Congress and the other mayor, African American mayor of Newark, New Jersey. This is bullshit. These people, the MAGA fascist people running the Department of Justice in the MAGA administration, MAGA regime, are going after a duly elected congresswoman who was assaulted in trying to do her actual constitutionally mandated oversight powers and authorities that come with Article 1 of Congress. She was trying to go in and do her job, along with Congresswoman Watson Coleman, along with Congressman Menendez, along with Mayor Baraka. They were assaulted, but they're the criminals. Now, you had January 6th MAGA terrorists who stormed the Capitol. And I call them terrorists because they're terrorists. They were not rioters. Please, traditional mainstream media, stop calling them rioters. They were terrorists. That was a terrorist attack, but that's for another discussion. Ultimately, these folks are now saying and claiming that what they did in trying to exercise their legal oversight and the municipal authority of where this private business is operated, that they were acting in a criminal way. Now, they dropped the charges against Mayor Baraka, but they are now charging Congresswoman McIver. This is a message to Democrats, independents, non MAGA Republicans. It's time to stop the belief that somehow there is bipartisanship with MAGA Republicans. And they're not even really Republicans in my perspective. A real Republican, and I used to vote for real Republicans. Rick Snyder, I voted for him twice for governor. My grandmother loved Bill Milliken. She voted for him all three times when he was a candidate, and then the two times he ran for reelection as governor. She was sick when he decided to retire and not run for reelection in 1982. But these MAGA people aren't Republicans. And so I say this to everybody else. cross-partisanship between non-MAGA Republicans, independents, Democrats, third-party individuals, Green Party, Workers' Party, Taxpayer Party, etc. That's the coalition that is of the willing, the coalition that is the majority of America. That's the coalition that can build a prosperous future, which still will include MAGA Americans. They just won't be active participants because they choose to go in a different direction. But ultimately, in Congress right now, and this is where I'm looking at to read, MAGA Representative Buddy Carter, who is, I believe, considering or looking to run for the U.S. Senate seat against Senator John Ossoff, has introduced a resolution to strip Congresswoman McIver, Watson Coleman, and Congressman Menendez of their committee assignments in the House, and Marge Taylor Greene, another congresswoman for Georgia, is calling for them to be expelled. These people, these MAGA people that you serve with, want to put you in jail. They want to prevent you from having a job. They want to take money out of your pocket. They want to take the right that your voters who chose you, their ability to vote freely for you, they want to take that away. And you still call them your colleagues, your friends, people you work with? That shit's got to end. It's time to start treating the severity of the situation. We have a wound. America's been injured, and America hasn't really dealt with the wound. Acting like the wound doesn't exist or that you can find common ground with the injury makes no sense. To heal the wound, you have to acknowledge the wound and take the prescriptive actions to treat the wound and stay away from the activities that cause the wound. In this case, stay away from the people that are causing the wound. And this is, if you're in Congress and you're a Democratic member or an independent or a non-MAGA Republican like Senator Lisa Murkowski, stop messing with the MAGA folks. Stop doing bills with them. Stop working with them. These people are actively rooting for the regime Department of Justice to put you in jail for nothing. You were assaulted doing your job and they want to put you in jail. But these are people you can work with. Come on now. And then in Chicago, they're going after a mayor for having the audacity of actually hiring fucking qualified Black people, qualified African Americans. Like somehow that doesn't exist. Just because they only found one person that's African American to put in a position, Scott Turner over HUD, doesn't mean that there aren't qualified and quality actual Black Republicans who could be in positions in this regime, but they're not because they're not people who are willing to sacrifice themselves at this altar of fake masculinity and fake MAGA white male superiority. So I just say this, people, and I say it all because we have to, it's time to stop. This is offensive. This is offensive to me. And I'm interrupting my evening and work that I'm doing because I felt it important to actually step up and say something and post something. And yeah, this is a long video. So, a lot of y'all might not watch it. I hope you do, but a lot of y'all might not watch it. Hopefully you will, because this is utter bullshit. going after the mayor of Chicago, going after an African American congresswoman for doing their jobs, for trying to investigate oversight. Oh, and lastly, the lie that the people that the MAGA regime is trying to pull out of the country, the undocumented Americans, that they're criminals. Most of the people that they have kidnapped are not criminals. Being here as an undocumented American is a civil infraction, not a criminal infraction. It's a misdemeanor. So ultimately, well, misdemeanor is criminal. I'm sorry. Let me correct that. Misdemeanor is criminal, but it's a light criminal versus an actual felony. But these are not terrorists. These are not criminals. These are mothers and fathers. And standing up for them, and a lot of them are actually legal residents who are in the immigration system, but who had the nerve to say something that they didn't like, that the MAGA regime didn't like. So, long post, I'm wrapping it up in a nutshell by saying this. Non-MAGA Americans stop working with the MAGA folks, elected officials, businesses, etc. Stop working with them. Illinois stands strong for the fact that you hire qualified African American candidates and qualified non-white MAGA heterosexual male candidates for positions that they were qualified for. Stand with that and do not bend, and stay the course. Stay the course. And Congresswoman McIver, sister, even though I'm in Michigan, I stand with you. I got your back. I'm praying for you. And hell, I contribute to your defense fund because this is bullshit. All right. I think I've went on long enough, but I had to get these things off my chest. And also, yes, I do have a haircut and have had a beard shave, so I don't look as rough as I looked in the past. So, it is what it is. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Pray that you all have a good night. I even pray for the MAGA folks who hate us because ultimately Jesus loved regardless. And my son Jamil and my son Xavier also are of that love regardless mentality. Jamil no longer here with us, Xavier's still here, but we got to love regardless, even if we got to cut people out of our lives. All right, thanks.